resistance is futile. Your life, as it has been, is over. From this time forward, you will service us.
No, we will not service Washington.
Mr. Worf, fire.
Well, welcome to our second take at this since YouTube blocked the audio on the last one. We're going to redo it here. So this is our big 2016 Roundup, and this is Renegade Ramblers Radio. We're thinking outside the box is not just a must, it is a way of life. And we have Jeff on here. And Jeff, how are you doing during this fine evening?
I'm doing pretty well. It was another long day in corrections and working hard behind the bars.
You keeping those prisoners in line up there in New York now?
Actually, I have very little to do with prisoners anymore. I have enough seniority. I have a tower bid. I work outside the jail in a tower. I'm always armed, so life is good. Just like our opening.
It sounds like you have a lot of fun there. Get to play with all the firearms.
Well, it certainly is a plus. So happy, or as one of my favorite movies is Merry New Year.
Merry New Year.
So did you?
So how was your?
I was just going to ask you, how was your New Year? Did you have a good time with family?
Oh yeah, had an excellent time. Sports wise, it was great. Well, other than everyone knows my Nittany Lions lost tonight, but it was fun. Yeah. We had a lot of fun.
Yeah, and me, I worked, and then I came home, and I was trying to stay up, and at about I remember looking at the clock, it was 11:45, and that's it. It was over. I woke up in the morning. So that was my exciting New Year's Eve.
I actually made it past 1 a.m. The wife was done by about 12:05. She's like, give me my kiss, and then rolled over and went to bed.
There you go.
But I got her up till midnight, so that's improvement, I guess.
Well, that's like I said, that's better than me because, like I said, 11:45 and it was all over.
Oh, well, you didn't miss anything. I mean, I think Mariah Carey was trying to test the FCC on how little clothing she could actually wear to an event that's televised on national TV. But I digress. This is supposed to be a Roundup show, not a critiquing of the Rockefeller. Well, I guess it's not Rockefeller, but the New Year's Eve show on ABC.
Well, that's what we kind of discussed the other day. We were trying to figure out what we're going to do for this first show of 2017, and we kind of decided that let's just do a top 5 list and see, top 5 stories as we saw it for 2016. And so let's just we might as well get started with this and get it going with your number 5.
My number 5. Let me see if I can remember from last night. I am under the influence of the quake Mucinex, apparently, tonight. If you can't tell by my voice, I've been suffering from a cold. But number 5, I believe, was Carrie Fisher and her mom both dying within 2 days of each other right here at the end of the year. As you know, I'm a big Star Wars nut, so I can't skip over a story like that. Rogue One was awesome, by the way.
Yes, I as I remember that we discussed this again last night. So, but Carrie Fisher, yes, passing away. It certainly is coming to that whole franchise is kind of coming to the end with the original cast. She's passed, and Harrison Ford's up. He's got to be in his 70s. It's just hard to believe. You're way too young to remember this, but I saw all 3 of the original movies in the movie theaters. 1978, I would have been 15 years old. I went to the movie theaters with my best friend Scott, and we saw Star Wars, the original movie, in the movie theaters in Brant Beach, New Jersey. So, that's how, it's been a while since this all came out and this whole franchise started.
Well, New Jersey. Well, that explains a lot about you. You're from New Jersey.
Well, I was born in, all things fair, I was born in Pennsylvania. We transplanted to New Jersey. So I am a native Pennsylvanian.
It's okay, brother. I was born in southeastern Baltimore, between Baltimore and Annapolis. So I got nothing.
Now,
to
see,
top
now
you
that does explain a lot. So, yes, that was one of those big stories recently. There's been quite a few. It's been a pretty bad year for celebrities. We've lost a lot of celebrities this year. And that, the end of the year just kind of, with the whole Star Wars connection, with Rogue One coming out, and, Carrie Fisher dying, and then I think it was the next day, or I don't think it was 2 days. Was it? Was it 2? Her mother died? I don't know. It was just very quick. It was just. Her
mother died the very next day, according to the family spokesman.
Okay. So, that's just such a tragic, it's the holidays anyway, but, that's just terrible.
Yeah, and then you also had the priest off of MASH died, too, within a couple of days of that.
Yeah.
Not sure which one it was, but he died before the end of the year.
Yep. Father McCahey. And I'm going to tell you, I remember Father McCahey. I saw this show again. I'm old enough to remember this show. Original runs, not the reruns. I saw this stuff live. So again, you're too young to have seen it live, but I always remember this is one line from Father Mulcahy. He was chiding Hawkeye about something, and I can't remember, but he went, jocularity. That's the line I'll always remember from Father McCahey.
That MASH was truly one of the epic shows. I catch the reruns whenever I go to Canada, which is bad. I got to go to Canada to watch reruns, but I go to Canada to watch reruns.
So anyway, yes, that was tragic, and it is a loss. I'm not quite sure what they're going to do for the next Star Wars movie, because now Carrie Fisher is not with us. So hopefully they have her parts already filmed.
Well, if I know anything, if they do this episode 8 like they did episode 7, it's already done, filmed, and it's in the editor's hands now. So the only question will be, we'll put it this way. There's a couple of questions. So one question is, does she end up dying something akin to, spoiler alert, repeat, spoiler alert, like Han Solo does at the end of 7?
Right.
Or does she make it through 8 completely and they write her out between 8 and 9?
Right. That's a possibility too, especially if it's in the can. So,
well, they completely changed nobody knows how they're going to take 8, because they took all of the books that were written. The storyline goes about 20 different ways after the second Death Star gets blown up. And Abrams basically took all the books, threw them in the garbage can, and wrote his own script. So nobody has a clue how 8's going to turn out.
So it has nothing to do with what the original books or what the original storyline that Lucas wrote then.
I'm not aware if Lucas actually wrote them or not, but I'm just showing.
So I thought he wrote all 9 stories.
Here.
9 stories,
I'm
and
not
he did
sure.
the middle 3. But I don't see. I'm not the
uh,
aficionado here, so I don't know. I'm just going back what I thought I'd heard somewhere.
I just watch the movies, my friend.
Okay.
And collect the stuff. That's it. I don't get into the whether or not Lucas is the the writer and creator of all of it. Or all I know is he owned the rights to it. He wrote the script for the 4, 5, and 6. I think he wrote the scripts for 1, 2, and 3, and that was about it.
All right. Well, folks, you're listening to Renegade Ramblers Radio, where renegade thinking is always outside of the box. And just to shift gears a little bit, my number 5 story was the shooting of the police officers throughout 2016. And I kind of added little names to each of my stories as a subtitle for that story. And my subtitle for the killing of all these police officers was the death of the civil society. In 2016, it didn't start there. But boy, we went a long way to becoming a less civil society. It started with Ferguson, and we really could go way back beyond that. But with Ferguson and Baltimore and all the riots, and then last year with North Carolina, and then on the West Coast after Trump was elected, you had all those riots and looting, and so here it is. Oh, here would be a good place for that new sound effect we have. We're going to try out sometime. All these people going, where, Donald Trump won. He's not my president. And so let's go loot something and burn something down. I mean, come on. We have become such a sissy society. We have no respect for life. We've had just way too many police officers shot. And like I was saying the other night, we just had one within a week ago in Pennsylvania, a state trooper killed. And I was just now reading about a police officer today in Oklahoma got shot. Who's in critical condition. So it's already started out in 2017. This story from 2016. I want to let you know that I did a little bit of research in 2016. 65 police officers were shot and killed in the United States. To put this in a little perspective, in Afghanistan, and again, we're not comparing apples and apples here, it's apples and oranges, but it's a war zone. There were 14 military personnel killed in Afghanistan this year, where there were 65 police officers shot and killed in the United States. I mean, we have no respect for human life, and it just goes all the way around the world. So what do you think about that, Daniel, as far as this uncivil society we have today?
Well, it is really pitiful what's going on. Now, I will tell you this much. They did catch the guy that shot the trooper and killed him on Friday, and he has been sent to the, how shall we say this, to meet his maker.
Yes, I had heard that.
Yeah, apparently, well, there's an old saying with the Pennsylvania State Police, and that's shoot first, ask questions later. Normally, when you shoot one of theirs, especially if you kill them, you don't normally live to trial. That's nothing against the troopers. That's the old saying.
Yep. Well, it's just really good
for that either.
Yeah. See, I already had one of my fellow officers at work. His son just graduated from the Pennsylvania State Police Troopers Academy, and so I went and talked to my buddy at work. And I said, so did your son know this guy? He said he roomed with him at the academy. So I was kind of getting a lot of, information off of him because his son was passing along information to his dad. So that's just really tragic. I mean, that's how close. I mean, I'm in a really small community. It's a huge community. There's lots of us, but really when it comes down to it, I mean, somehow or some way, we're all interconnected in this community of law enforcement. So, I mean, Yes, it is. Folks, you're listening to Renegade Ramblers Radio, where Renegade thinking is always outside of the box. So do we want to move right on to our number fours?
I think we probably should take a break here. We've been going for, I think, about 10 minutes or so now.
Okay. Well, then let's go ahead and take a break, and then we can come back and pick up with number four. I know we took a little bit of time just kind of catching up on 2017, but sounds good. Daniel, take us out.
Here you go. This is Renegade Ramblers Radio. We'll be right back after these words from our, sponsors.
In order to ensure the security and continuing stability, the Republic will be reorganized into the first galactic empire for a safe and secure society.
Does status quo thinkers in government have you down? Listen to Renegade Ramblers Radio, where renegade thinking is always outside of the box.
And welcome back. This is Renegade Ramblers Radio, where thinking outside of the box is a necessity. Okay, Jeff, I think we're up to number four. Do you want to go ahead and do your number four?
Sure. My number four was Syria. This story was just such a monstrous story throughout the year. It just kept coming back into the media just about daily. You couldn't look at the news without seeing something about Syria. And as my last one, I kind of gave Syria its own name because it's really a story about one thing, and that's Merca's meddling. You know, we just can't leave anyone in the world alone. And Syria is just no different. And it just takes in that whole region. I mean, it really started all the way back a long time ago with Libya, and then we started meddling in Egypt, then we started meddling in all over the place. And then now we're selling arms to Saudi Arabia is bombing them. And I mean, we're just responsible for killing so many people. And this kind of goes back to our last one, this uncivil society. It's just a continuation of this glorification of the society of death. I mean, we really are infatuated with death. So what are your thoughts on Syria, Daniel?
Well, Syria is a mess. Syria's always, well, I won't say it's always been a mess. It it's not exactly the most pleasant place to live. But it was at least a haven for Christians while Assad had complete control. Now that ISIS is over there, they're just butchering anybody that doesn't bow to the Sunni way of life.
Yeah.
Or they're taxing them into oblivion.
Yeah, well, that's part of that whole story. Again, this whole Syria thing. I mean, first you had, I think back last summer, there was that Russian fighter jet shot down by Turkey, which is part of the Syria story. And then you had the Russian ambassador shot in Turkey, which again is still part of that Syria story. And then Aleppo, which our media basically didn't cover at all. They left it go when Assad's forces and the Russians freed Aleppo. The Christians were celebrating Christmas in Aleppo in freedom. When the ISIS was in charge, they were being drowned and burned alive and crucified, and it was an awful place. As soon as the so-called terrible person of Assad and the evil Putin freed these people, now they have freedom to go back and worship Christ without worrying about being killed. The world's upside down. We are supplying the arms to the bad guys here. I mean, we went to Afghanistan to kill the radical Islamists, and in Libya and Egypt and in Saudi Arabia and then in Syria, we're giving the arms to the radical Islamists. And so, I mean, I can't even make sense of this. The megalomaniacs like McCain and Graham and Obama, we're just on the wrong side of this whole thing.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at our history, we've been doing arms deals with people we say are our enemies since, I don't know, probably predates World War One. We were selling arms to both sides in World War One, and we did it for the majority of World War II until Japan bombed Pearl Harbor.
Yep.
And
well, look at Saddam Hussein. He was our buddy. We were sending all kinds of stuff to him. Then all of a sudden, we had to kill him.
Oh yes, because apparently he said something bad about Poppy Bush. We can't have him saying something bad about Poppy Bush. But yeah, during the Iran-Iraq affair, we were funding both Iran and Iraq because, well, we don't want to take one of them out, because if we take one of them out, there'll be a power vacuum.
Yep.
So what do we eventually do? We go in there and take one of them out, and then we sit there and go, oh, wait a minute, I guess there is a power vacuum. That was real brilliant.
Yeah,
let's double down and do it again.
That's why I called Syria our America Meddling. Folks, you're listening to Renegade Ramblers Radio, where renegade thinking is always outside of the box. And so, Daniel, let's move on to your number 4. What was your fourth most important story of 2016?
Well, my number 4 is probably slightly related to Syria, because I mean it goes to the growing tensions. But the bulk of number 4 was our idiot in the White House, our current idiot. Yes, I'm being kind. That's probably a disgrace to idiots. But Mr. Barack Obama expelling Russian diplomats for no reason. We can't prove, from what I'm being told by my tech people and from my family that was in the Air Force and stuff and military, we can't prove that Russia hacked our election machines. We can't even prove that Democrats that were dead didn't vote. But we're going to blame the Russians for why Hillary lost. I'm sorry. Hillary lost because Hillary was a horrible candidate and because God did not want her to win.
Yeah.
It's just plain and simple.
I know there were a lot of Christians all over the country praying that she lost, and I really do believe I will agree with you on this, that there was divine intervention in the election, because yes, I mean, they can't prove that there was anyone hacked the election. I mean, there is lots of proof. If you look on the internet, you'll find there's all kinds of people after the recount in Michigan, where they were saying in Detroit they had more people voting that were actually there to vote. I mean, so
well, look at the last presidential, not this election, but the last one, where Barack Obama took 100% of the precincts in Philadelphia. There wasn't one single vote for any Republican or any other candidate.
Yeah,
and you're going to tell
the
me
statistical odds. Yeah, the statistical odds, that's impossible.
Exactly. There was election fraud. Well, now we're backtracking to 2008, but there were Black Panthers literally standing outside the polling office with not bayonets,
With batons.
nightsticks. Yeah, batons.
Yeah, batons.
Threatening people not to vote. Was there any action done by the Attorney General? No, it's both the state Attorney General's job and the federal Attorney General's job to prosecute that. Nobody did it.
Yeah.
They had a judgment against the Black Panthers in 2008. A no, what do they call this? A no fault penalty, because the Black Panthers never showed up. The Attorney General, Eric Holder at the time, dropped all charges.
Yeah.
Just dropped them. Just, whatever. But that's not voter fraud. But if we have an inkling that a Democrat lost and we can somehow pin it to Russia because, well, Russia's got to be at fault for everything, then we're going to run with it. Even though it was probably, if anyone was going to hack us, it would probably be the Chinese. And the Chinese probably would have hacked it for Hillary and not for Trump, because China likes doing business with the Clintons.
That's right.
I'm going back to
and the other thing is, with this whole thing is, okay, so we expelled these 35 diplomats and they closed 2 compounds in the United States. And the big part of that story for me is how Putin responded. And Putin goes, yeah, okay, you know what? You're a clown. Hey, all your diplomats, kids, come over to the Kremlin. We're having a big party. We'll entertain you for our New Year's Eve. I mean, he showed the world what a feckless leader our dear King Obama is.
I just love how he said, I'm going to ignore what Obama does, and I'm going to wait to see how Trump reacts.
Yeah.
And up to date, Trump hasn't said anything about it other than he's looking into it.
Right. And actually, this is going nowhere. And as soon as Trump's in, this is all going to just go away. It's going to be a non-story. But it is a big story because you have McCain, you still have McCain, and you still have the Grahams that are pushing hard. They're in a proxy war now in Syria. That's the whole point of Syria. And that's why it's the big story, is because it's a proxy war between us and Russia.
Well,
and that's going to be, it's been going all the way back to Afghanistan. Go ahead. You're right.
I was going to say, these proxy wars have been going on clear back since just after World War II.
Right.
When the USSR was flexing its muscle, we were starting proxy wars in Afghanistan and what were the I think Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, all of those. We were the ones funding terrorists at the time because the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
And so that's Syria.
We'll fund Osama bin Laden as long as he's killing Ruskies. The minute he starts killing Americans, oh no, now we got to go in and take him out. Well, maybe we shouldn't have funded him in the first place.
Exactly. And that's my number. Yeah, that's my number 4. Again, the American meddling. We just can't leave the world alone. If we would one quote I was going to do with Syria, and it won't fit here too, is in Thomas Jefferson's first inaugural address. He said, "Peace, commerce, and honest friendship with all nations, entangling alliances with none." If we would just go back to Thomas Jefferson's vision for America, we'd be a lot happier. The world would be a lot safer and and there'd be a lot of more prosperity in the world because we'd be trading with everyone and being friends with everyone. But no, our trade is selling arms and helping people kill people. Folks, you're listening to Renegade Ramblers Radio, where renegade thinking is always outside the box. And let's quickly move on to number 3, and let's see if we can cover this real quick before we take the next break. Daniel, what was your number 3?
My number 3, it was kind of a tie because, we'll get into it next. But my number 3 is the abortion fest that happened in Philadelphia this summer. I'm sure that with you living as close as you do to Philadelphia, you fully know what went on in Philadelphia. They stopped just short of performing an abortion on stage to the hooping and hollering of an entire convention center.
Well, this is again I mean, you really look at all these stories. I mean, there's a couple of them here that won't fit in, but with Syria and the civil unrest, and with your story with the with abortion, the abortion fest, it really, it goes back to our fixation on death. I mean, you got Oregon and some of the Western states where they have legalized euthanasia now. I mean, if there's someone sick, they can go to a doctor and they can kill them. I mean, where does this end? I mean, we're that far gone? It really is a thing. It's a hard thing, and I mean, the transcendent truth is where we need to go back to. But yeah, it really was something to see on TV. Their glorification of the abortions.
We are 2 steps away from making the barbarians look like kindergartners. We've killed 50, I believe we're up to 57 million babies. We make Stalin, Lenin, and Mao Zedong look like freaking kindergartners in preschool learning how to kill people. It's got to end. It just has to. We eliminated the whole deal with, we had to wipe out the Aztecs were because they were doing, they were killing people and offering them as sacrifices. Well, I'm getting tongue-tied here, but that's basically what we do at the abortion clinics. They're little chapels that kill babies, and I don't know what, I guess they worship them up to Satan, but anyway, I'm going to get hot here. We need to keep this moving.
Yeah.
You get the idea, and I'm sure everybody listening's got the idea on this one.
Yeah, this is Renegade Ramblers Radio, where renegade thinking is always outside the box. And my number 3 was Brexit. I'm just going to get to it, Brexit. And I called this the earthquake felt around the world. This earthquake was so big, it's a tsunami. There's this ripples. There's aftershocks all over the world. And I'm going to get right to it. As far as, I mean, the Financial Times said Italy and Austria elections keep Europe on edge. So even all the way up in November, this happened in June. Into November, you had Austria and Italy. Italy first was, they were trying to change their constitution to give more power to the prime minister, take power away from their legislature, and give more power to the European Union, to the EU. And the people roundly defeated it. It was like 75% no. It was just a landslide against it. And then Austria, they elected a right-wing, quote unquote, leader that is anti-EU. So this is just continuing there. And with Brexit, Britain, their economy is doing better now that they're in control of their own economy and their own future, and not having people in Brussels tell them how they're going to do things, how much fish they can catch and everything else. They're now actually, their economy is getting better. And this really was just a massive earthquake over in Europe, and it's still, the aftershocks are still not done.
Yeah, it's I want the states to wake up to this. We do not need Washington, D.C. telling us what to do, no more than Britain needed Brussels telling it what to do. The states are more than capable of taking care of their own affairs.
And I think
did so.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
They did so prior to there even being a U.S. Constitution. Before there was a pledge and before there was a national anthem, there was the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. There was a Commonwealth of Pennsylvania prior to the Declaration of Independence. I don't know if people have realized this or if they've forgotten this. And yes, I'm on a rant again, and you can tell me to shut up at any time. But you got to realize the states are sovereign. They've always been sovereign, and they need to get back to being sovereign. Okay, but as for Brexit, yes, you're completely right. Brexit was a shaking move heard around the world, and it's high time the rest of Europe decide that they need to split and do the same thing.
That's right. And we've talked about this before, and we're going to have to do a show on secession in the future, because Brexit was a secession from the European Union. We need to discuss it. And actually, one of the stories this year in the United States after the Trump election was Calexit. I mean, California, there was a whole big movement there for a while. People saying, he's not my president, let's leave. Well, yeah, let's talk about it. I'm with you. Let's talk about Cull exit. Let's talk about Oak exit and Texit. I mean, I'm all on board. So let's have an adult conversation about it. But that's going to have to be another show because, man, if we get on Secession, this is not going to be an hour and a half show. This is going to be a 3-hour show.
Oh yes,
and
me ranting a lot because
Yes.
there are two things that I hold dear when it comes to these broadcasts, and that's the abortion issue and secession. And trust me, we get going on there, we'll be talking about Stonewall and Lee and Jefferson Davis and the whole 9 yards. So we'll have to leave that for another show.
So yeah, why don't you just take us out to a break? And we'll get out. I'll be able to get a drink, and we can take a quick break.
All right. This is Renegade Ramblers Radio. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
I am Locutus of Borg. Resistance is futile. Your life, as it has been, is over. From this time forward, you will service us. Mr. Worf. Fire.
Tired of servicing the cybernetic organisms in Washington, D.C.? Unplug yourself and listen to Renegade Ramblers Radio, where renegade thinking is always outside of the box.
Well, welcome back to Renegade Ramblers Radio, where thinking outside the box is like blowing up the Borg cube. If you ever watch Star Trek, you'll know what I'm talking about. It was probably the best part that Star Trek The Next Generation did was dealing with the Borg. But anyway, I believe we're on to number 2, Jeff. And what was your number 2?
Well, my number 2 is, again, another big story, and it was the Clintons. And the subtitle for this one is The Destruction of a Dynasty. And boy, was it a good destruction. It was. That's like the board thing right there. You know, Commander Riker saying, Mr. Worf, fire. and they fired and they destroyed the Clinton dynasty. So that was a good lead into, that was a good commercial there. So this whole story was pretty much consumed most of 2016. I mean, you couldn't not watch the news. Every time the news tried to turn everything on to Trump, it was something about the Clintons. And so I kind of made up a little litany of how the whole year went for the Clintons. It started off with emails. Then it's not emails, because Comey said there wasn't any emails. And then it's emails, Wienergate. Then it's Hillary's health, Bill's predation, and then emails, Assange. I mean, it was an incredible year to watch. I mean, I almost felt bad at times. It was such a train wreck. It was like watching this train going down the tracks and hitting, going off the rails and crashing and burning, and the Clintons just. And well, I'm not sorry it happened, but boy, it was almost brutal.
This, I have to say, this was the best presidential cycle for me since I've been able to vote. Well, actually, I'll digress. It's been the best election cycle since I was born. No, I was born in 85, so I was at the tail end of the Reagan administration. Also, the coldest year on record. But I digress again. Yeah, it was just hilarious. I've been waiting for these to break, and man, it was amazing watching them break. I just couldn't believe how she could just keep deflecting everything, and people were still going to vote for her.
Well, she got 65 million people to vote for her.
Yeah, I mean, they had the abortion fest. They had her on stage during the debate saying that if a kid has one toe inside the mother, you could still kill it. It was just the blatant in-your-face stuff that she'd put out, and nobody seemed to say anything. Of course, granted, now the conservatives bashed her, but then the conservatives played soft when it came to Trump. And it was just one of those, you couldn't make any sense of it. But the whole year was just, there again, this goes back to your number, I think, 4 story about the Russians being expelled. I mean, so this actually has a tie in there. I mean, because they're saying it was outside forces that brought her down, but really it come down to it was their greed, their debauchery, their immorality, and their pride. I mean, anyone that watched them, I mean, you couldn't go away with anything but like, man, she just doesn't even care about us, and she acts like we're just way beneath her. Yeah, it was the condescension, the I'm better than you, you should elect me because I'm the stateswoman. She was never a stateswoman, but again, you're going to get me off on a tangent here, and I'm just going to want to go full full Rambler on you.
Yep.
And I'm not going to be able to shut up.
And I'm the Rambler.
Yeah, you're supposed to be the Rambler. I'm the Renegade that's supposed to be, Renegade's another word for rebel. I'm the one that's supposed to be the rebel, with the rebel yell and, all that sort of stuff. I'll have to see if that song's even available, if YouTube's going to block me from playing it or not.
Yeah. So you're listening to Renegade Ramblers Radio, where renegade thinking is always outside the box. And so let's move on to your number 2, Daniel. What was your number 2 story for the year?
Well, my number 2 was Brexit.
Okay.
And this is where I think we crisscross. But with Brexit, for me, it was number 2 because it so changed the dynamics of how everybody looks at secession now. It changed it from, if you're a secessionist, you want to have slaves, to, oh, this is actually a legitimate political option. And then as soon as Britain did it, then there was talk of Austria going, and Italy and Spain and France possibly going, and the entire EU looked like it was starting to collapse. And I think it's still going to collapse. I think by the end of the year, we're going to be shocked at how Europe has actually reverted back to its pre-World War II styles of government. But No, I don't. I don't. With that being said, I do not believe the Nazis are going to retake Germany. I don't believe the fascists are going to retake Italy, but I do believe that they will be staunchly nationalists going forward.
Right, and that's I guess that's probably the biggest fear that could come out of Europe is that the old animosities are reborn. But you know,
This is
it's a chance you have to take.
This
It's
is
a chance
the
you have to
longest,
take because
yeah. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think this is the longest stretch that
Yeah.
Europe has actually been at peace and not been at each other's throats. The kingdoms of Europe have always, and yeah, I know I say kingdoms. They're not kingdoms anymore for the majority of them, but they used to be kingdoms with monarchs and emperors. And they used to fight on a yearly basis. There's even, the 400-year, or was it the 100-year war? You had the 100-year war. You had Napoleon Bonaparte. You had World War I, World War II. These countries always fight with each other. How they've gotten along this long is a miracle.
right, but it's a chance you have to take because whether or not they go revert to that old nationalism is unimportant. Really, it's just that they need to be able to be sovereign and control their own destinies, if you will. I mean, I don't like that whole saying, but you know what I mean. Is that they need to be able to control inside their borders what they do as far as their commerce and stuff, and then they can have peaceful commerce. And that was, again, goes back all the way to mine, Syria one, with that peace, commerce, and honest friendship with all nations. And it can happen. It's just, sometimes it's a little harder when you have people like McCain's and Graham's and some of the others that are pushing you towards never-ending wars.
Well,
so go ahead. I'm
key
sorry.
to get- you're fine. You're fine. The key to getting rid of people like McCain and Lindsey Graham and the never-ending war neocon war hawk party is secession. If you just break away, Pennsylvania could not afford to go to Iran and bomb Iran or bomb Iraq or get involved with Israel and Lebanon or Syria.
But we can have a mutual defense. We can have a mutual defense pact with all the other states around us, though. So if one's attacked, we could all come together and fight off the attacker. So we could still have security. It's not about not being secure.
No, it's just about not intervening in everybody else's affairs. I mean, really, excuse me. Who's best to regulate your property? The people in your community and yourself who own the property, or somebody that lives 200 miles away that rents an apartment from somebody, but because he's a bureaucrat and has a pen, thinks he can tell you how you should take the garbage out of your house?
Well, you and I agree on this, that we need more local rule. This rule from afar is not working. And honestly, this rule from afar in Pennsylvania is not working when we have Harrisburg trying to rule this large landmass that's Pennsylvania. I mean, look at California. That's a monstrous state, and it's disparate peoples. I mean, you got different cultures completely in that state, and it's the same here. We have almost different cultures than even in Pennsylvania.
Well, it's the same with Florida, Texas,
All
Pennsylvania.
states, pretty much.
You look at Philadelphia and the rest of the state have nothing in common with each other, or extremely little in common. You have with New York, you got the lower part of New York and then upstate.
Well, I work in upstate, so I know very well what that's like. So
yeah, you have Albany and New York City that completely control New York State, and it's ridiculous. You can't get anything done.
And so Brexit was a monster story, and obviously you just switched the order there a little bit with that. Folks, you're listening to Renegade Ramblers Radio, where renegade thinking is always outside the box. Is it time to take a quick break and come back to our number one and finish the show out strong on our number one pick?
Yeah, I think I'm going to need a break because I'm going to start having a coughing fit here in a minute. So I'm going to take us out. And this is Renegade Ramblers Radio, where thinking outside the box is like blowing up a Borg cube. But this time we're going to change the break and do something a little different and see if you like it. So let us know what you think.
Sheriff Merlin, innocent women and children blown to bits. We've got to protect our phony baloney job, gentlemen. We must do something about this immediately. I didn't get a harumph out of that guy.
You may not get a harump on Renegade Ramblers Radio, but you sure will get thinking outside of the box. Well, if you love thinking outside the box, please let us know. This is Renegade Ramblers Radio, where we always think outside of the box. Okay, I think we both agreed here, Jeff, on what our number one is, but I'll let you take the lead on it, and I'll comment back.
All right. I'm going to step back from the mic because mine has an exclamation point. Trump wins! So that was my number one. What was your? I think we agreed on that. Was Trump winning your number one pick as well?
Oh yes, we entirely agree on that.
And okay, and this really, I'm going to tie this back in because all the way back to my number three, this Brexit, it really has a bearing on Trump winning. When you look at Brexit, and we're going to kind of pick back up on that story a little bit because, and even my number two is going to come back into this story. Everyone over in England, every polling company there said Brexit was going to lose big. There was no way it was going to win, and then it won. And that was the earthquake, and then the tsunami went out from there. And the elites could not figure it out there, and the elites here couldn't figure it out. That there was a sea change, that something changed. The people have had enough. And do I think Trump's a great candidate? No. Do I think that he's going to fix everything? Definitely not. But I'll tell you this much. At least I'm cautiously optimistic because I look at some of his candidate picks, and some of them are good. Some aren't so good. But it's going to be an interesting year. And that was definitely the biggest story of 2016, Trump winning, the continuation of Brexit, and that tidal wave of that tsunami that came across and swept across here as well as sweeping across Europe.
Yeah, and I Trump is also my number one. So we'll just keep the dialogue going here. The only issue I ever had with Trump was the middle school type mentality of the way I beat you is to demean you and call you names and stuff like that. Now, that being said, I didn't care that he did it. I didn't like it, But in the same thing, nothing he said was over the top, if you know what I mean. He's 80 years old, or seven. I think he's like 71. He's not going to change the way he's thought and the way he said stuff now just because he's running for political office. And that's some of the appeal of Trump too, is that he's going to say the first thing that comes to his mind, and he doesn't care who in the press he's aiming it at.
Right. That was one of the big things that I liked about him, was the fact that he's unpredictable. They're trying to put him in this box that they're used to about a politician. Well, he's not a politician, and he says what he thinks, and sometimes it's not what they're thinking.
No, and it's completely outside the box thinking, which I think is why this program tends to approve of most of what he does. Now, granted, he hasn't taken office yet. We don't know exactly how he's going to govern, but his rhetoric's good. So,
well, on certain things, some things he's really good on, and other things, well, not so. Like, okay, example, you and I agree that the corporation doctrine sucks. Let's just be blunt about it. It sucks. It's and he will, if he gets his way, jam the incorporation doctrine down our throats with a national concealed carry reciprocity. Okay, well, I don't see the constitutional authority for it, but that's probably where it's going to happen. We're probably going to see it. I don't see how at this point it doesn't happen.
I have to tell you, I really have mixed feelings on this. I know it's probably going to end in a horrible ball of fire, but on its face, as a trucker that crosses state lines every day, this would make my life a lot simpler. Now, I know in the end, it probably isn't, and it's going to blow up just like every other thing that comes out of DC, but on its face, it's like, oh yeah, I can actually carry outside the state. There's nothing that Maryland, New Jersey, and New York could say about it then, because, well, it's federal law. Everything else they've jammed down my throat, with gay marriage and abortion and everything else. This is like, shall we say, revenge. But I'm a secessionist. I believe in states' rights. This is not going to end well. So therefore, I oppose it.
Right. And that's my whole thing. I agree with you. In one half of me, I'm really for it, because even though I live in Pennsylvania, because of civil service and working in law enforcement in New York State, I have to live in New York. So I technically live in New York. So I have a New York State permit, which is great because New York State doesn't accept anyone else's. But at the same time, then it stinks because everyone else has a problem accepting theirs. So I know exactly what you're talking about on that, but because I have to be principled on this, I have to oppose it, because I don't approve of it for abortion and everything else. So, and for gay marriage. So just because this is something I agree that I like, I can't say it's okay.
Right.
And I'm
not completely. I'm just saying, as a trucker, I can understand why people would think this is a good idea, because they're not. They're not thinking it through. They're not thinking what happens when another Obama gets in control.
And that's the whole thing.
And let's face it, if California doesn't secede and leave, the chances of ending up with another Obama candidate in 4 to 8 years is probably about as high as if Obama had ran for a third term, his possibility of winning was. It just, you got to be careful how much power you give these clowns, because they're going to turn around and bite you. They're snakes.
Yep. Well, and then I was also, like I said, I could bring this story back to Brexit with that with the tsunami, and at the same time I can bring this story back to the Clintons, because I had that whole line with the emails. So I'll start my email line again, but it'll end with a new ending. So it started out with emails. Not emails. Emails, Wienergate, Hillary's health, Bill's predation, emails, Assange. Clinton loses a rigged election. So, this was just such a tidal wave. This tsunami was just so huge. Even with the irregularities in Detroit, and there's irregularities all over. Philadelphia, I'm sure they'll find there's irregularities there. There was in 2008. There's always these Democrat strongholds. There's always more votes than there actually are people. And then, like you said, there was precincts where Obama got 100% of the votes. It's just statistically impossible. And even with the rigging and the way the media, even if we don't talk about vote rigging, the media tried to rig the whole election. They had every poll in the world, just like in Brexit, that she was going to win. They were rigging it. They were making sure that she got her dynasty back, and she lost the rig election.
Yeah, how do you lose a rig election? I don't get that. When dead people are voting for you, how do you not get enough numbers to win?
Well, it's that whole Brexit thing. It was that tsunami. More people showed up to vote for Trump because they're pissed off. They're angry at Washington. They've had enough. I mean, that was the big story, is that the people showed up and overcame the odds that were against them because they've had enough of Washington. Now, they're to fix Washington, and is he going to fix it? No. And so we're doing the same thing all over again. We're thinking that we're going to change something because we have voted for this guy. Well, no, we're going to have the same old thing. It may be a little less. It's going to suck a little less, but it's going to still suck in the end. So do we change anything? No. So, we go back to our only solution, and we're going to have a show on this another time. There is only one solution. Donald Trump may be a great candidate as far as this year, and I like some of his stuff, and like I said earlier, I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm not jumping on the Trump train, but I'm hopeful that he may actually do some of the stuff he said and actually get rid of some of the departments in the government, which would be a great start.
Yeah, I'm not. Cautious optimism, I guess, is the best phrase, like you said. My view of it, though, is if he does try and can't get it through Congress, okay, then people may finally start to wake up that we can't just keep sending people to D.C. D.C. can't fix the problem. D.C. is the problem. I believe even Reagan said the government can't help you. The government is the one causing you the pain. I'm butchering the quote, so don't write me letters and tell me I'm not quoting Reagan properly. I was a toddler when Reagan was in office, but he
said something to the effect that the scariest words that someone can say to you is, "I'm from the government, and I'm here to help you."
Yeah,
something along that line.
Right. So so Trump gets in. If Trump does do it, great, all the better. Let's still move towards secession. If Trump tries it and can't get anything done, great. Let's still move towards secession. If Trump just completely does the screw you nation, I'm going to run it how I want to run it. It's my business now. Okay, whatever. Let's keep moving towards secession. I don't believe there's a fix in D.C. I don't care. I dare say we can send everybody short of Jesus Christ himself to D.C. and we still will not be able to fix the problems. They are. It's got to be broke down. It's got to be dismantled.
Yeah, well, you know what? If they listen here to Renegade Ramblers Radio, where Renegade thinking is outside the box, maybe, just maybe, they would figure out a way to think outside the box and maybe actually fix something there. But no, they're not going to fix it. It's not going to happen. They're going to keep, it's that $4 trillion pie that they're all sitting at and eating, gorging themselves on. They're not going to give up that pie. They're going to keep eating that $4 trillion.
But eventually you run out of pie. Eventually you run out of fake, phony, fraud money. And people are starting to wake up. I don't think they're there yet. I don't even think we're close. It's probably another 20, 30 years down the road. But I'm starting to get the ideas that there's rumbling, at least in the younger generation I'm 31. 31 and down is not happy with the current state. They want to change. They just don't know what the change is because they've been fit into the public school a 3x5 card to borrow a phrase from one of our friends that we listen to. They believe the 3x5 card of accepted truth that they were taught in public school, that the government is indivisible, it's under God, that we must fight to preserve it. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
No.
Well, yeah. Try to argue about the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh my goodness.
My children are not in Cub Scouts right now because of the Pledge of Allegiance.
Well, I don't. Well, that's another show. We'll save that for a show because that's completely off topic. It's not about Trump, but
hopefully Trump fixes some of it. We'll leave it at that.
Again, we'll leave it at that. So, that was. I mean, this year was a really interesting year in stories. It was a really interesting year in politics. It was momentous in a lot of ways. I mean, we have in bad ways, like I said, with my number 5, as far as the police getting killed, in Syria, number 4. In good ways, you have Brexit. I mean, it was a sea change, and Trump coming in is a sea change. I mean, it really was a put down, a smackdown towards the ruling elites. The Clintons losing, that was a good thing. I mean, because of the abortion fest in your list, again, it was a momentous year.
Yes, and hopefully 2017 is much better than 2016. I think we get rid of one bad apple. Let's hope we didn't end up with another bad apple.
Yeah.
I think we voted the bad apple out of office in November, but again, hopeful optimism. Let's wait and see what happens, and I'll pass judgment every week here on the program on whether or not it was a good idea or not.
Well, thanks again for listening, folks, to Renegade Ramblers Radio. We've had a good time here tonight.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I think we did better this time on take 2 than we did on take 1. So maybe YouTube did us a favor by blocking that audio.
Could be. But it was fun. And like I said, I think I am looking forward to 2017. I'm a little bit. I think there's a little bit more optimism everywhere in the union. I think a lot more people are optimistic than there was before. I mean, Clinton was just so horrid, and so glad she's not going to be president.
Yeah, the only thing that worries me is we'll get lulled back to sleep and, the economy's good now. We can just relax, and the government will go back to minding their own business and not meddling with us. I don't know what La La Land that's from, but.
All right. Well, good night. Good night, everyone, and good night, Daniel. Thank you very much for doing all the technical stuff here tonight.
Yes, good night, Jeff, and good night to all our listeners. We actually had a couple tonight, which was awesome. So we're going to do it out. If you're listening to the Shoutcast feed, which I am working on getting so that you can pick it up on your phone. Right now, it's not there yet. You can get it on a computer, but anyway, you'll go out to Star Wars. We can't play Star Wars here. I'm sorry. YouTube will not let me do it without just completely destroying the entire video. So we're just going to end it. And like I said, I will input the Star Wars thing when I post it up to Shoutcast. But right now, good night, sleep tight, and we'll see you next week. We normally broadcast on Sundays, but sometime between 7:30 and 8:30. We normally try to be on the air by 8. But, we're volunteers here at the Renegade Ramblers Radio Network. Life happens. But I will post it, let you all know, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Good night, Jeff, and good night, everyone.